Great to have you all on today. What we're going to do, this is a shorter monthly call than we normally have. Just wanted to give everybody some time to check in, see how the PDSAs are going, go over a few housekeeping items, kind of plans for the next month or so. And then the rest of the time will be devoted to more of a working session. We'll have breakout rooms where each program can go in and start working on their final presentations. The analysts who are on the call will float to various rooms and provide support. You can also use it as a time to start preparing and planning for your next round of PDSA. So that'll be the schedule for today. It looks like we have most people on the call. Maybe a few more will be joining. So I'll pull up the slides for today. Let's see. Does that look okay? Sometimes when I share a screen, it looks weird. Okay, thanks, Amy. All right, so we're going to start talking about the collaborative we've been working on the last 6 months, developmental monitoring and promotion. And I know that there were some questions about timing across the collaborative. So I wanted to make sure everyone was very clear about what we were doing and when. We had the first learning session in July. OKC had theirs July 23rd. Tulsa was July 29th. Then we've spent the last 5 months or so working on the first action phase. So the way that these learning collaboratives work is that they're designed to have 3 different action phases. And I know many of you have participated in multiple learning collaboratives. So this is mostly a reminder, but I'm not sure how much this has ever been expressly communicated to you. So I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we will do 3 action phases. In January, we will have our next learning session. Those are the all-day trainings that we do. And there'll be one on the 27th and one on the 31st. We decided this time schedules were so complicated that rather than force it geographically, because it's virtual, it doesn't really matter whether it's OKC or Tulsa one day or the next. So we went based on availability. You should have received an email indicating which day you were doing your learning session. If there are any questions about what day you're supposed to be doing the learning session, please just email Lisa and she can let you know exactly when to expect to participate. And as a reminder, the learning session, the expectation is that in addition to the supervisors, the providers are also on the call so that they can help with that planning around the next round of PDSAs. After the learning session in January, we will move to action phase number 2. That will go from February to June of next year. So again, about a 5 to 6 month period. Then we will have another learning session, most likely again in July. And then we'll do our last action phase from August to December of next year. After that, we will probably switch to a completely different topic. That was why at the last monthly call, we talked about, well, what topics would you be interested in the future? Those topics wouldn't be introduced until 2023. Any questions about that schedule?
Helen, I got a question.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to be doing the same topic, but I mean, if we had to make any modifications in our particular PDSA, that we still can do it, right?
Oh, absolutely. So each action phase, the topic remains the same in terms of from action phase 1 to 3, it's developmental monitoring and promotion. But you are welcome to pick any primary drivers, secondary drivers from that key drivers diagram for each phase. So if you decide this time you focused on, I know for your program, it was focused on families who had an identified concern and you were working on positive parenting with them. If you decided you wanted to completely switch gears and focus on workforce development around child developmental monitoring and promotion, you could do that. Or if you wanted to focus on all of your families and do a completely different set of handouts and materials that you provide, that's fine. It's just staying within the theme of developmental monitoring and promotion. Any other questions? Okay. We also have SMART aims for our entire collaborative, and I just want to remind you of what those are, and we are tracking those data, and we will be reporting on them at the next learning session. We had 2 SMART aims for this learning collaborative, which is relatively new. Usually we just have 1, but because we had both a focus on monitoring and promotion, we wanted to have 2 different aims. Monitoring, as a reminder, is really focusing on making sure we're tracking a child's development and seeing if it's on course and where it should be. So the learning collaborative objective was to monitor and make sure that 80% of children who have an identified developmental or behavioral concern will receive their targeted developmental promotion and support in a timely manner. Basically seeing if we identify a potential concern, are the kids then being referred to the right support services? And we're going to look to see, are they receiving those services? I know that on your end, you don't have control whether they receive the services. You simply have control over whether you refer them. So we'll be tracking both of those separately. We're also going to look at promotion. So what are parents doing to improve the development of their child? And we're going to use the Learn the Signs Act early measure that we've been doing, looking at how often parents are participating in certain positive parenting practices and seeing if that improves by 20% on average across the entire collaborative. So this is the core measure that we've been having your programs complete every 3 months. And I know for a couple of the programs, there was some confusion. So this core measure is something we use to track across the entire learning collaborative, how parents are doing with promoting their child's development. Some programs are also using this measure for their PDSA outcome, but others aren't. So this measure is supposed to be administered every 3 months. And the way that ETO works is we can set reminders for our learning collaborative touch point to make sure that those are completed every 3 months. We can't set reminders to the PDSA touch points. So those are the touch points that just have your own unique questions. And we're not able to set ETO reminders for those. So those just as they come up, basically you have to track within your program to make sure that the providers are completing those. But this is the core measure that we were trying to collect, and it's 15 different questions about behaviors parents might be doing to improve the development of their child. And when we meet in January, we'll show what the results so far, what we're seeing in terms of on average, how often are parents doing these behaviors, and are we seeing any improvement across the entire learning collaborative over time? Any questions about this measure? All right. And I wanted to, as you start thinking about the next round of PDSA projects, I wanted to just briefly go back to the key drivers diagram, just to point out a few things to think about as you're starting to plan the next round. So again, we have this broad aim on the left-hand side around increasing developmental monitoring and promotion, but we have 3 different primary drivers. These are basically the content or topic areas that programs could focus on for their PDSAs. One is to improve developmental and behavioral screening. The second is to increase workforce training on child development. And the third is to increase family involvement in child development. And I would say the vast majority of programs this time around focused on the third. So they tried to increase family involvement in child development. And some of the feedback I've been hearing is that because of all the staff turnover that's happened in some of the programs, because of the level of cancellations that sometimes families have, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into the visits already. And some of the providers are feeling like trying to get to CQI, sometimes that takes a hit and they're not getting to the CQI content, or they're not collecting the data as readily as we were hoping. The other 2 primary drivers, so improving developmental and behavioral screening and increasing workforce training on child development, I would say both of those are a little less focused on what the provider is doing and has a little bit more room for pulling administrative data out of ETO, data that you're already collecting, as well as not requiring as much new content to be delivered in the actual home visits themselves. So before the learning session, we will circulate, and actually what we'll do is after this call, we'll circulate this key drivers diagram again. So you can start thinking through if you did want to change the focus of this next round, this next action phase, what you might want to focus on. And as a reminder, there are multiple ways that we can monitor data and pull data for your data dashboards for your PDSA projects. We can look at referral tracking and ETO. As you know, ETO collects a fair amount of data on what referrals were made, whether they're open or closed, and what happened with those referrals. So we could track that if you're interested in developmental monitoring and screening and what happens as a result of that screening. We can also track developmental screening and ETO. We can look at the ASQ3 scores. We can look at some of the other screeners that you may do to see how children are doing, see if there are differences across families on the developmental screening. We can track referral follow-up, so what's happening after those referrals were made. If you want to focus on workforce development, a lot of the data in ETO includes provider training, so looking to see how many providers are receiving training on child development topics, and can we improve that over the course of the 5-month action phase. We also have the Learn the Signs Act Early materials that our team created. There are 2 different measures. One is the core measure that I just showed you, which can also be used for PDSA outcomes, and that's focused on parents' behavior. Are they engaging in positive practices with their children? But the other one is parents' knowledge of child development. Do they understand the milestones their children should hit and when they should hit those milestones? And then we have the positive parenting practices flyer that was created by our evaluation team. That's the white and purple, and I'll show that in just a second, that highlights different positive parenting practices. And I know that various programs got pretty creative with what they did with these. Some of them laminated the positive parenting handout, even gave them markers so that they could mark off which positive parenting practices they focused on. Other programs picked specific positive parenting practices that they wanted to try and improve. So instead of focusing on all 6, they honed in on maybe 3. Some programs that I was talking to over the past couple of weeks during the rounding calls mentioned maybe even really focusing in on 1 positive parenting practice and trying to improve that one over the next action phase. This is the monitoring measure. So this is the one, it actually has significantly more questions, as you can see. Let me go back. But this is just for space. I could only fit 12 out of the 32. It asks about these developmental milestones, and parents indicate at what age it would be a problem if their child has not reached this milestone. So if they're not making eye contact, if they can't retell a favorite story, if they don't bring things to their mouth to chew on. I do know at least one program decided to, because the 32 items is pretty lengthy, they decided to shorten it, and they picked some of the key milestones that they thought would be important for parents to know and be able to identify. So you don't have to use the full 32 questions. If you feel like it would be helpful to just focus in on a subset of those questions, you can absolutely do that too. And this is the positive parenting practices handout that I just mentioned. And in addition to focusing in on 6 different positive parenting practices, it also gives some information about suggestions, things you can do that fit within that kind of domain of positive parenting. For example, going out, it talks about a number of different things you can do that count as going out. And one of the reasons that that's particularly helpful is I think that sometimes families get caught up in checking an event off the list. So when it says eat meal times together, well, yeah, we eat meal times every day. Well, the quality of the meal may differ in terms of, are they all sitting down together? Are they talking, or are they on devices? Are they asking each other about their days? And there are even other suggestions within here about ways to kind of switch that up. So if it's feeling like you're struggling with mealtime and you want to try to figure out a way to get the family more engaged, maybe you have a picnic in the living room, or you go eat outside. I mean, probably not in December, even though it's been unseasonably warm. So maybe you could do that this December. But but it gives various suggestions. And I think for some of these, we've been talking about how they are a little bit more challenging right now with families' concerns around COVID. So going out, playing with peers, sometimes those are harder to get families to want to do given the COVID restrictions. So thinking through how could you do that in a safe way? And also how can you do it in a way that's not this big excursion that might overwhelm families? You know, it doesn't have to be going out to a museum and paying an exorbitant price to get tickets and spending all day outside. It could be simply going and doing some yard work out in the back or blowing some bubbles. I mean, really trying to make it as simple as possible for families. What we know is if parents do these behaviors, it helps their kids. It doesn't need to be something big and elaborate. Simply spending time together in a quality way where they're talking and interacting and bonding is hugely important for the children. Okay. The last thing I wanted to do before we go into our breakout rooms is to just walk through the slide template that we provide. I know all of you have done this before, but just a reminder, I'm going to quickly talk through what we expect for the final presentation. We usually start with providing some background information about your agency, where it's located, the history of the program, what model you're using, the counts of providers, both MIECHV and non, and then client counts. Then there's kind of an overview of your PDSA. So what key driver did you pick? Why did you pick it? When did you start? And what was your SMART aim? Then for measures, this is just defining how you measured your outcome, process, and disruptor. What was it that you were actually collecting data on to see if there were differences over time? And then you put in your change theory diagram, which all of you have already made, so you can just plug that straight in. Then the plan, so who implemented the change, who was the target? For some of you, it was all families. For others, you focused on a subset of families. What did you do? Where did you do it and when? Then for the do, we ask that you provide kind of a step-by-step recipe. So starting from the beginning to the end, what was it that you did to try to create change? What observations did you have during the execution of the change idea? So what was kind of your general impression on how things went? What problems were identified? I know that a lot of the programs that use the app, for example, numerous problems were identified around families don't have space, families delete it off their phone, families may or may not have found it that engaging. There were some challenges around language barriers. Did you make any adaptations along the way to try to deal with those problems that were identified? And did you have any ramp up changes over the 5 months? Then for your outcome measure, this is the measure that you wanted to change. So in all those data dashboards that you receive, there's usually a headline graph and it's your main measure that you are trying to improve over time. And what we've been trying to do, and this is a good example, is have the data analyst put what you were trying to improve by how much and show a trend line or some kind of indication of whether you met your SMART aim or not. So this is a good example of here's at the first measurement, here was the average score. At the second measurement, here's the average score. You were aiming to get up to the blue line. You met your SMART aim. The process measure is what is your program actually doing to try to create the change. So are there certain numbers of materials that are being handed out? Are you having discussions at certain visits where you're talking about positive parenting practices? For this program, you can see every week the PEs reported discussing positive parenting practices, which was their process measure. So 100% of the time, they met their goal of discussing these positive parenting practices. And disruptors, I think those are the kind of cleanest and easiest. Those are the things that could go wrong, essentially. And some programs track just one disruptor, others track a whole number of disruptors. So that's what goes on those slides. And then this is usually a slide where the data analysts step in to help inform the responses. This is interpreting your specific findings. for your outcome. Where did you start? Where did you end? Did you see a percent increase or decrease or any change over time? For the process measure, here's what you were trying to do. How often did that actually happen? And disruptor, what were the problems that came up? Then we'd like you to report lessons learned. This is more of a narrative. Any stories that you have, any anecdotes, any quotes, or just kind of comments that the providers or families have made. This is kind of where you put that in. And then you put overall conclusions. Did you reach your goals? What did you learn? And what might you do differently going forward? And then finally, we end with your act. So are you going to adapt, adopt, or abandon this plan moving forward? If you adapt it, you say basically, we're going to make some modifications, we're going to make some changes, and we're going to test it again. If you adopt it, you say, we liked it, it worked. We're going to try to maybe implement it on a larger scale. So expand out to other families or do additional pieces of the project to kind of expand it out. Abandon, you decide this didn't work, it was unsuccessful. You learn from it and you move on to a different project. Okay. Any questions about any of that content that I just covered?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to go out. We're going to go into the breakout rooms. Lisa, are you assigning the breakout rooms or is it just open and they can pick?
I had it set on the settings where they can just pick the room. If you need me to put you in a room, just let me know.
Okay. So you should be able to pick your room. You will probably, depending on whether you're the only person in your program that's there, you may be in the room by yourself for a little while. The analysts who are on the call will try to float across their various programs and spend about 10 to 15 minutes in each room so that they can help provide support. I will also be floating. Anybody who's not with a specific agency, like the directors of PAT and C1, if you want to float around to the various rooms, or you can stay in the main room, it's completely up to you. We're going to spend about the next 30 minutes. What I'm hoping we do during this period of time is if you want to work on your final presentation and start getting it ready, if you have any questions for your analysts as you start to put that together, you can ask them in the moment, and or you can do either one, whatever's more useful. If you want to start planning ahead for your next round of PDSA, you can do that as well. And again, you can work with your analysts and talk through, well, how would you measure certain things? What data would you use? What measures? So you can start planning. So we'll actually do about 25 minutes so we can meet back up at the very end. So you have about 25 minutes to work on that. And then we'll come back into the main room and just finish up before the end of the hour. All right. So Lisa, if you want to open up the breakout rooms. Oh, looks like maybe you did. Yep. So the breakout rooms are open. So just feel free to jump into whatever rooms for your program.
I'm actually going to close all the rooms because the old setting was on there
Okay.
for 15 minutes. So I'm going to close them really quick and then put it back for. See that. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, now they're open.
All right.
Someone's asking for the template.
Yes, we Lisa, do you have that so you can send it out to everybody really fast?
The old one that we were already using?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can send that out.
All right. So if you don't have the template, she'll email it out now, but it's the same one we used previously. So if you want to pull from your last presentation that we did in July, you can pull that and just adapt it. All right. Thanks, Lisa. All right. So everybody should be able to go into their breakout rooms at this point. Down at the bottom, you should see breakout rooms, and then you can just pick for your specific program.
I don't see that. Where's that at?
If you don't have it, it might be because your version of Zoom. And Lisa, can you maybe assign?
Yes, I'll put you in your room, Patty.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't see one either. I did
Okay.
earlier, but not anymore.
Okay, can you assign Marisol as well?
Yes.
Lisa, I need to be assigned as well.
Okay, so
Yeah,
This is
Deidre
Deidre.
from
I think
Frontline.
everybody needs to be assigned.
There you are. Anybody else?
Did you get? Yeah, so Sarah from Creoaks.
Okay.
I don't see anything either. This is Lori Esther with OSDH.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a room for you. You want to go into the,
Yeah, Lori, is there a specific room? Would you like to just float into one of the programs or? You can stay in the main room. It's up to you.
Lori, this
Yes.
is Susan, and
Hey.
was trying to decide if I was gonna go into a room or not, but I'd be happy to. Helen, will you be in the main room or are you floating?
I'm gonna float, but if you can stay in the main room if you want and catch up, or you can float to
Yeah.
other rooms.
Do you want to do that? Do you want to do that, Lori?
Yeah, stay in the main room. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
it
stay here
looks
with
like-
you.
It looks like right now Susie and
Yeah,
Ketsi are also.
Betsy and I are here too, so.
Okay, well, that's perfect. We'll just hang
Okay.
out here then. Thanks, Helen.
Absolutely.
I think that's it.
Susan, what are you munching on over there?
Me?
Yeah,
You hear me eating?
well, kinda. Now I want breakfast.
I was having some yogurt with some dried cranberries and some granola.
Well, that
Yummo.
sounds good.
Yeah, it's my go-to lately. You know how you just kind of get a craving and you just kind of stick with something.
Yeah.
So I just buy those big tubs of Greek yogurt, and I like to have fresh fruit, but today I only had the dried cranberries. But the granola just adds that like extra crunch, so it's not just this like baby food
Yeah.
feeling.
Oh,
Well,
I
Lori,
love-
oh,
go ahead. No, I was gonna say, I love cranberries. If I can stick cranberries in anything, I do it.
Yeah.
Dried
yeah.
cranberries.
Well, I made this giant, I don't think you can make trail mix without it turning out to be like 27 cups, right? I made this giant thing of trail mix for our meeting, our lead nurse meeting. And I mean, I know that they snapped on it. But I still had so much left over, and that's what the dried cranberries are from, because I see now if we were all in the office every day, like our old life, I would have brought that the next day and everybody could have
Wiped it
pounced
out.
on it. Yeah, it would be gone. But instead I'm slowly just limiting myself because of course there's M&Ms in there and all kinds of other goodies, but
You mean all the good stuff?
well, and that all goes to the bottom. So like the pretzels and the corn cereal, little Chex Mix or whatever. That's on, although I like that stuff too. Lori, how's your week been? It's Friday.
Yes, it's been good. I worked late one night and just got all my training done. So that's done. I know that's like just a little thing, but it's like, yay.
Oh no, that's a huge thing.
One less thing off your plate.
Yeah, I get to mark that off. So I've got to meet with a lot of people, a couple of meetings I still need to get done. I'm trying to set up folders and just make sure how I want to organize everything. I've flagged a jillion emails I've got to go back and look at and pull up
Oh yeah.
information and trying to read everything. So but it's been good. I felt the transition has been really good. I feel very comfortable. Everybody's been very welcoming. So I
Good work, team.
Yeah. Well, we saw Lori the other day, Katia, and she said that there are many people who came from OCCHD over to the state, so that she's seeing a lot of familiar faces,
Yay.
which I think that's nice too, right? Like,
it is. Yeah. I've had so many people, and it was funny. Lauren Larson came up the other day just for a few minutes. She tracked me down because she wasn't at the event Friday. So yeah, all of that is great. It just makes me feel right at home. I don't feel, it doesn't feel weird or awkward. So that's really, really nice. I am learning differences about OSDH compared to OCCHD, just, processes and systems and stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure we do the same things, right? We do public health, but yeah, there's the processes I can see would be probably different.
Yeah.
Hey, Lisa,
Yes.
Tunley, are you gonna help Lisa find a room? Because I hate for her to have to
Oh,
be
I'm
hanging
sorry.
out with us.
I'm emailing people templates and stuff. Let me.
Oh yeah, no worries. I just figured she probably doesn't want to hang out. She probably wants to actually get in a room.
It doesn't matter to me, really. I just got here.
I know, I saw
I
you
had
pop up.
Yeah, I had a sick dog in the night, and
Oh,
I was up for 3 hours, and
oh gosh.
so,
I hate
yeah, I
those.
overslept then.
Yeah, that happens.
Hey, Dewan, do you have the ability to look at the breakout rooms to see if you can put yourself in the breakout room?
Perfect. I was wondering how we got there. I can see that. I'm just trying to see which one.
I'll put you in there if you can't put yourself in there. There's no one in your room, by the way.
I was about to say, it's just me.
So I think Helen said that an analyst, thank you, Lisa, that the analysts were going to be kind of going around. So I don't know if you want to hang out in there until your analyst are they even on the call? Is your analyst even on the call?
Actually,
Looks like,
yeah.
yeah, he's in parent promise right now.
So once he's done there, he'll make the rounds and connect with you, I think.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course.
Have a great holiday.
Bye.
Apologies, Lisa. I figured you were working on something else, and so I thought I would help you out.
Yeah, I was not even paying attention. I still haven't done what I needed to do. I totally reorganized the our server, like the folder for the learning session stuff, like totally reorganized it. Now I don't know where anything is.
Yes,
So.
I feel that.
Lori, are you gonna leave the staff meetings at the same time, or are you thinking about?
For right now, I am.
Mhm.
I kind of told you all I'm not gonna like come in and make a bunch of major changes right away. I mean, I probably will make changes, but I thought just to kind of leave meetings right now as they are, and then we can adjust as I kind of settle in and figure it out. But I'm fine with leaving it right now as is, and then, as I said, I'll go take it from there.
You're going to have your own calendar of things, and I guess this was probably just the best time for Beth, to kind of have the meeting. But yeah, I would assume that you'll have to look at your own schedule.
Yeah. But I will let everyone know and everything. So I'm not somebody who just has to make change for the sake of making change because, I'm new, but if there's a need, I will do it.
I'm sure that is a comfort, I think, to a lot of our colleagues who, it's always nerve-wracking, or just, you're just always concerned, like, oh, we're getting a new person, and what is that going to be like? But I figured you for someone who wouldn't just, come in the first week and be like, rah, and so I think, what would you say, Ketsia and Susie, that the staff are feeling comfortable? And
oh yeah, I'm excited to actually meet you in person though. I was gonna ask, how often are you in the office?
Well, right now I've been in the office a lot. I work from home one day last week and one day this week. I'm used to coming in the office every day. That was OCCHD policy. So it's not a big deal for me to come in. I will probably transition, I'll depending, I'll probably telecommute more as I get settled in, but right now I'm coming in quite a bit. And Tina and I talked about that, and she thought that was a good idea. And like I said, it doesn't bother me. I'm used to it. So, but I can probably see me doing like going right now, it's like 4-1 and going to 3 days in the office, 2 at home, and then maybe eventually getting to 3 days at home, but I will probably never be in the office less than 2 days a week.
You will love your days where you put on yoga pants and pull your hair back in a ponytail. They're awesome.
Well, the only problem is you usually have all these meetings, so of course you can keep
Oh,
your
you
hair off.
can still have yoga pants on the bottom and
Oh
wear a
yeah,
nice
but I
shirt
have to
on.
put on makeup.
I love that, Susie. That's
Oh
what
no, Lori, the trick is that you just put on like your powder and your blush and some lip gloss and they can't tell.
Yeah.
That's probably true, but
These are good tips. These are Susie's tips for virtual meetings.
Well, you can also do the 80s soap opera fuzzing of your face on Zoom. So I do that too. Smooth out my face.
I'm
Excellent
so pale.
tips.
And I
I'm
throw
so
my
pale.
glasses on just for good measure.
Yeah. Always have your glasses on.
Yes.
The dot because it's fewer than 10 families being represented there. And so we get a few more that could definitely pull up. Now it could also pull down.
Right.
We'll just hope that it doesn't do that.
Right.
And then over here, you've got the exact numbers and where things stand. So you started at 14.85 and currently, as of Wednesday night.
And she got to meet Melanie. She got to meet Melanie yesterday. So
Yes, and I met Melanie
good.
yesterday. So
Did
that
you guys
was
go
really-
to Cafe Mibu?
we
Yes.
did with Melissa.